It's Aileen, one of the nurses from the Irish Heart Foundation. Thanks for joining us today. Today, we're really lucky to be joined by Lucy Pope. Lucy is a senior speech and language therapist, and Lucy works with an early supported discharge team in the south of the country. And every day in Lucy's job, she's working with people recovering and striving towards their communication goals after they've had their stroke. We recognise that there's lots of communication challenges after you've had a stroke, and today we're going to lay those out on the table. We'll also hopefully help you with some strategies and understanding of why those challenges are present. So Lucy, welcome and thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Aileen. Lovely to be here. Hello, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Communication after stroke. The real expert is you, the person who has aphasia, but I spend my time working in this area. I'm very passionate about it. I work with the early supportive discharge stroke team. I'm a speech and language therapist, and I work with Cork University Hospital and Mercy University Hospital. And hopefully some people out here listening now I may have worked with. I've set out kind of 5 things to talk about in the presentation, as well as some questions from Aileen. So you might have come across the terms aphasia, apraxia, dysarthria, and cognitive communication. So I'll briefly touch on those. Sometimes at different points along the journey, people say that they may not have heard these terms and they're new to them, and that they like to have a little bit of information about what they are. So I'll go through that a little bit. Why do we communicate? Just to put that out on the table. Communication recovery. So what can you do? I hope I can give you some ideas, strategies next. And then a concept, conversation partner training and total communication. What is that? So starting first with what is aphasia? It's communication difficulty. It happens after a stroke or any brain injury. It can happen. And it affects understanding the message that's coming in. So what others are saying to you. Or it may affect what's coming out. So we use that term message in, message out. And then it might affect reading, or it could affect writing. And its severity is different for everyone. So we as speech and language therapists use the term mild, moderate, severe. So there might be things that you hear along the way. And what is apraxia? That is a motor programming difficulty. So all the sounds get mixed up, and often people describe it as very frustrating because they know exactly what it is that they're trying to say, but the mouth isn't doing what they plan it to do. That's why I have this picture here of this person looking at somebody's mouth, because it's so important when you have apraxia to look at the mouth to try and relearn those sounds and make the mouth do what you want to do. But the more you try to make it do what you want to do, sometimes the harder it is. So there's some tricks to that we might talk about later.
Lucy, a question came in actually, and it may be related to this. And it was a question from somebody asking, does singing your favorite songs help if you have some communication challenges after you've had your stroke?
Yes, Aileen, singing can be very helpful in the instance of apraxia, tricking the brain into getting those words out again in a different form than speaking, and then you can transition that into speaking in time.
Oh, so it's kind of like you go on autopilot because it's your favorite song, you've done it before, you're not thinking. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Autopilot is a lovely term to describe what we need to do to support somebody with apraxia. Yeah.
Okay. That could be nice as well. Lift the heart. It's always good to sing.
Lift the heart. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Choirs, there's good research on the benefits of choirs. Yeah. For people with aphasia, but very much around this apraxia area too. So then what is dysarthria? So again, it's affecting the mouth, but it's in a different way. It's the muscle movement. So the other one is a programming. It's the message coming through to the mouth. But this one might be a weakness of the muscles, or so that will be a flaccid dysarthria, or a high tone to the muscles, or maybe the voice and the mouth, you might not be able to make the speech loud enough. So you might have slowed speech, quiet speech, or unclear speech. Your words might sound slurred. So that's dysarthria. And then cognitive communication. So this is where you can get sort of social communication things going on, where you might find that you're not quite taking turns in a conversation, or you're speaking more than you usually would, or you might not be saying the exact right thing in the context of the conversation. And it's just not hitting the right rhythm in that social network conversation that you're having. So that's called a social communication difficulty. And it can affect work and education. And sometimes, maybe in acute settings, that can be difficult to see. And it's more when people get home that they notice that this might be going on. So I've listed a few things there, like verbal memory and working with OTs to think about how we can support, using writing to remember things if there's something going on there, thinking skills, knowing when to take a turn, organizing a story, or being over talkative. They're just examples. So why do we communicate? So this is just putting it out on the table, what everybody already knows, don't we? It might make us feel good. We want to share ideas. Friendships matter. We want to build them with people. We want to make plans. We might be like doing a presentation in work, like me now. Telephone calls, social connection and company. And we learn from each other through communication. And that's some of the reasons that we communicate.
Lucy, I'm just going to jump in there for another second. There was another question that came through, and it's actually one that we get a lot for people struggling or to have challenges with their communication after their stroke. And it's about asking the question, does talking help? Because talking can be hard. And for some people, they might even say they're a bit embarrassed in a certain situation, or they lack confidence. So is it a case that you go for it? Does it help? Or should you hang on and wait until you're very confident to go ahead and speak or communicate or talk with somebody?
Participating as much as you possibly can is so important in your recovery, and trying to find the confidence and working with the clinician that you are with and your family members and the Irish Heart Foundation or any other support network that you have, to be able to cross that bridge, to have a conversation with those that you're comfortable with, at least to start there, is really so valuable in your recovery. It's one of the most important things you can do if you can find the support network to help you to cross that bridge, as difficult as it is. And as much as you have to take on board with this change that has happened, it's what's going to make the biggest difference in the long term. So if you can find some way of trying to communicate, and communication isn't always just about talking. Communication is about using hand gestures, drawing, pictures, pointing things out. It's about getting that message out and getting that message in. That really is what communication is all about.
And a certain part of this question is about harnessing some courage to go feel the fear, do it anyway, because you know down the road it's going to help you more.
It will, of course. I'm really conscious that I'm not in anybody's shoes, only my own. So I think, like, you know, and it's different for everybody, that journey. But if you do feel fearful, there are services there to help you with that, and it's worth reaching out to try and bridge that fear for your recovery, like I was saying, you know. Yeah, but
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
in anybody's shoes.
Okay. Thank you, Lucy.
Communication, so after recovery. So this links in really very much with that question as well, Aileen, that recovery is participation. And as part of the stroke team, that's what we want to do. We want to build an understanding of your interests so that we can develop goals to help you engage in activities. And then support adoption of those strategies, that new you know, self, I suppose, in a way, to enable life participation. And that those concepts of friendships matter as well, that, you know, social participation is a part of recovery. So general strategies. So choose a quiet place. Like I say, it's different for everyone, and the therapist will get to know you and what works for you. So these are overall general strategies to help people who experience communication difficulties after stroke. So choose a quiet place to talk. Try and use one-to-one if it's a very important conversation. Keeping eye contact as I stare into the camera. You always do that when you say keeping eye contact. Check if the person receiving the message has understood. Use gesture, use drawing, pen and paper. Never go anywhere without a pen and paper. Maps, phones are great now to help, like, look at pictures, stay on topic, you know, help the person to at least get the topic of what you're trying to say, perhaps, so that then they can build on it by asking you yes/no questions. Clarify the topic. So going back again to that picture to say, no, this is what we're talking about, or the listener might do that. A lot of people find tapping out long words if they have dysarthria, or sometimes they're recovering from apraxia, sometimes can be very helpful to clear up their speech. So the list is endless.
Another question, Lucy, that came in that might relate to, you know, to this kind of particular topic of figuring out your strategies was, you know, can or should family help? And I know sometimes we hear, just to add on to that question, that sometimes family can be tricky. Maybe they don't understand, you know, especially if somebody hasn't their family, but maybe they don't live with you and they're coming in to visit. So, you know, how can you work to get that close circle working with you, helping you, you know?
Yeah. So I suppose families are the main communicators usually with someone who has experienced communication difficulties post-stroke. So they're hugely important because they're the facilitator of this. And that's where the kind of conversation partner training side of things comes in. And if we can support somebody who has difficulty communicating in the right way, you're building up from there. It's not like it might always have to be that way, you know, it's stepping stones. So yes, family can help. Giving somebody time is hugely important. Just pausing for a moment to let somebody find the word from themselves if they want. They may choose and ask you to give it to them because they might find it very frustrating trying to find the word. And in that instance, that's the role of the family. Writing the topic down so that you have that point of focus, or helping the person to find a picture so that you can try and narrow it down, is very useful for the family member to do. Putting together communication books of important pictures and topics that might come up all the time, that's very helpful to give a point of reference again, but also to give somebody who has a communication difficulty, and if it's very severe, identity, which is so important to all of us. Sometimes if you can encourage the person to, maybe if they're trying to find a word, look in the environment around them, offer them forced alternatives of two things, asked a closed question that requires just a yes/no response. Engaging in social activities just to help the person be confident enough to go out the door and go for a walk, meet the neighbours, go into a group, you know, accompany them. I mean, a family has huge role as well for transport after a stroke, you know, and doing what can be done to facilitate that, so that the person, you know, will get out there, you know, because I suppose there's not being able to drive straight after a stroke, and also then having to ask that question can be, I think, a tough thing. So maybe just supporting them and being able to use their local transport as well. Yeah, family are crucial. And I suppose that brings me on to the conversation partner training side of things, that, you know, using that pen and paper to facilitate the conversation, and using drawings to see if that helps. Write down keywords, having maps and pictures on the screen or available to you in a folder, all those things that might be of interest, or like somebody's very interested in sport, you know, pictures about them involved in sport, or if they have other interests, you know, just a picture about that can really help to steer the conversation. And when a new person comes along, they can utilize that. So I suppose that engagement piece, which is so crucial in the whole recovery picture. While I'm tying things together here now at the end, I just want to hit on that a little bit, that the conversation partner training, you know, looking at your local universities, are they doing anything with conversation partner training? Your local support groups, the Irish Heart Foundation. In Cork, we have the Cork Stroke Support Group. Are there services out there? And also students, you know, are very supportive in, and universities are very supportive in making the environment accessible, and want to get engaged in those projects. So, you know, your voice is what they want to hear. They want to hear you telling them these things, that what you need from the community that you live in. And we need that too, you know, so that we can shape things out in the community so that it maximizes your engagement and participation. And as stroke teams, you know, we fly that flag, and that's a priority. So please give us your feedback, because we won't know unless you tell us as well sometimes. Then walking groups can be really helpful, because, you know, if sometimes, like, it's easy to have a chat when you're walking, there's that, you know, you can have quiet moments and a little bit of conversation. So, you know, just not always thinking about the direct conversation, just alternatives perhaps, that don't require as much talking, but yet you will learn a vocab again to get back and you'll get engaged, hopefully, back in to a new activity, perhaps, who knows. And then the jam symbol, you know, pointing that out when you get to the bus. Just a minute. There's probably a little bit of work to do to build understanding about what the use of that is, you know, across the country, but it's there, so let's get using it. The Irish Heart Foundation communication card is excellent. There's a social prescription around the country in places where your clinician could refer you to a social prescriber, and they'll come and they'll get an idea of what it is that you like, what are your interests and hobbies, and what's out there, and try and tie it all together. The libraries, they are just a great place for engagement and finding different things that are going on, and things like Men's Shed as well. So maybe Aileen might let us know of some of the other stuff that's available in the Irish Heart Foundation, because that list is endless. I'd never have time for it all.
Yeah, so like aphasia and communication challenges in general are such a key topic after somebody is recovering from their stroke. Because ultimately, if we can't communicate, there's so much that is blocked because of that, you know, friendships, connections, asking for something that you want or need, you know. So it's on very basic level and then on a very complex level. So it's something that we always have in mind at the Irish Heart Foundation. What I will do is I'm going to actually create a separate post to this actual video, and I'm going to talk about the specific supports that we can either signpost you to outside the organisation, and also some short courses that we run to support people with aphasia after their stroke. Also, any of you who are in Stroke Connect, so if you have your stroke coordinator, you can always ask them about any of these supports. And I would urge anybody at all that isn't in that service to contact our nurse support line, and we'll be able to direct you accordingly. So the nurse support line is 01 668 5001. I'm going to post that in the description of this video, so it's written down there for you as well. Lucy, is there anything else you want to say before we sign off?
No, it's a pleasure to be working like with people who are, like I say, the experts of their own care, and their own communication. And you know, thank you. I've just met the greatest people in this job.